As many of you know, my family and I are all movie buffs. We love movies. We watch them far too much. Funny, actually, story. We were hanging out with a friend that we hadn't seen in years. And she's just like, I don't get this much. I don't have times like this. And we were, as a family, we were thinking, times talking about God, times, being together as a family, times of joy, celebrating. What is it? And she's like, no, I'm just not around people that quote movies as much as you guys. Not the impact that we were hoping for, right? But we love movies, and we debate about films a lot. We even debate about what websites are the best at rating films. Now, my brothers like Rotten Tomatoes because they like to look at the critic rating and then look at the audience, because you can tell a lot between the critic and Robert's back there going, yes, this is me, this is my point. Because, yeah, he likes to know if the critics really like it but the audience doesn't, it might be very well made but not very entertaining. If the audience likes it, but the critics don't, very entertaining, but not well made. I like IMDb. And the reason I like IMDb, which is the information movie database, is that they have an algorithm that weighs those two things together. And if you look at their high-rated films, not that there's no bad films in there, but it's pretty reliable. The best film, according to IMDb, does anyone know what the highest rated is? No? Shawshank Redemption. Just out of curiosity, how many people have seen Shawshank Redemption? Okay, pretty much everybody here. Good. So that means I don't have to worry about spoiling it. All right, great. If you do worry about spoiling it, you can just go ahead and leave for like 10 minutes or so. Shawshank Redemption. Now, I think Shawshank Redemption is rated as the best film on IMDb for a few reasons. One of which is it was not a box office hit. So it's not attractive to everyone. The people who don't want to watch a movie like Shawshank Redemption, called Shawshank Redemption, a movie about a guy who spends his life in prison for the majority of the time. It's an adult movie, by the way, so not kid-friendly. But they won't watch it, so they don't rate it, and that helps it get a high rating. It's also very well made, and it's entertaining, so it hits both of those levels. And lastly, there's this thing that Shawshank does that is a really bad film technique, okay? I studied film script writing and film history in college, and so now I have an opinion that I can criticize things. That's what I got with that, I can criticize. But one of the worst techniques that films do is a thing called voice-over monologues. Voice-over monologues is basically where the scriptwriter and the director couldn't figure out how to say something naturally in a film, so they just tell you it with this voice coming out from the heavens out of nowhere. I hate it. It's really annoying because you could show those things, or you could have it be dialogue. You could have at least a character off camera and have them saying it. But no, voice-over monologues, big pet peeve of mine. Yet, Shawshank Redemption does it so well that it makes the film better. And the reason is one reason. Morgan Freeman. Because if you're going to do voice-over monologues, there's really only two options: Sam Elliott or Morgan Freeman. That's it. Morgan Freeman's voice is so amazing that they filmed a bunch of penguins randomly walking around, and it became this global phenomenon. It's like if you get trash blowing in the wind, but if you have The Sound of Silence by Simon & Garfunkel playing behind it, people are going to say, brilliant! The Graduate. I didn't even like the movie, but Simon & Garfunkel, and they wrote a soundtrack for the film. It's a classic immediately. That's all it takes, because you get the right sound behind it. Morgan Freeman's voice, it's just amazing. I wish I could have him narrate my life. Richard wakes up today, and he puts his foot down, and then he puts his other foot down, and he stands up. Oh, I'm not sure what Richard's thinking, but he tends to think from time to time. There's a comedian that he was talking about, Morgan Freeman could talk about the carpet, Oh, that carpet, how it goes from wall to wall. I like to walk on you, oh carpet, when my feet are bare. And, from time to time I may stain you, but you're still my carpet. Yeah. Yeah. Not, now, when you take that voice and that ability to make anything poetic and you get an awesome, impactful meaning behind it, then you've really got something. And the movie Shawshank Redemption was based on a novel from Stephen King, and it's got these great themes in it about hope. One of the things that I love about the movie Shawshank Redemption is its message of hope. See, there's two characters that are in prison the entire time, most of the time of the movie, and spoiler alert, one of them, well, they both actually get out. But the two characters are Andy and Red. Andy is played by Tim Robbins, and Red is played by Morgan Freeman. Andy's played by Andy's played by Tim Robbins, and Morgan Freeman. I don't know why I did that. I wasn't planning on it, but Morgan Freeman. Right? And Morgan Freeman's character is the guy who can get stuff. Now, Andy is falsely accused, but he's supposed to be in prison for the rest of his life, never going to get out, whereas Red might have a chance of getting out at some point. Now, Andy has to get some kind of hobby to take up his time, so he does sculpting of stones, and he asks for a pickaxe. Now, Red thinks you can't ask for a pickaxe in jail. If you ask for a pickaxe in jail, they're going to kick you out, right? But he says, just wait till you see the pickaxe. So he smuggles in this pickaxe, and it's this tiny little pickaxe, and Red makes a comment of like, it would take you 100 years to dig out of this place with that thing. I can see that we're safe. Well, it doesn't take him 100 years. It takes him 19 years. But sure enough, with that little pickaxe, he digs away at the wall, chip by chip, just slowly over time, taking a little bit more dirt out, then putting it out in the yard, and then taking a little more dirt out, and then putting it out in the yard day by day, just chipping it away. Yep. So he's just doing this thing over and over, right? And can you imagine that? Can you imagine in your life if you were stuck in a prison and for 19 years you were just chipping away with this tiny little axe at the same wall, and at first it looked probably like you were not getting any farther forward in your life, that you just kept on chipping away? Some horrible things happened to him throughout the movie, and still he goes to that wall again and chips at that wall. See, Red believes that hope is a dangerous thing. It can drive a man insane. Red, instead, he lets those walls truly captivate him. Even in his mind and heart, he is a prisoner. But Andy keeps hope. And he says hope is a good thing and can never die. They can take a lot of things from me, but they can't take my hope from me. I'm going to keep chipping away. Of course, Red doesn't know that he's going back to his cell and chipping away. And there's this awesome scene because Andy decides that the best place to hide it is in the Bible. So he cuts out this section of the Bible and he puts this little pickaxe. And there's this really riveting scene where they're pulling apart his bed and they're looking for contraband. And they're looking for it and he's holding his Bible, which has got the pickaxe in it. And the warden comes and he sees the Bible and he says, hey, can I see that? And he goes, yeah, sure. So he gives him the Bible. If he opens the Bible at this point, the jig is up. But they start talking about Bible verses that they have memorized and everything. And finally, the warden starts to leave, and he leaves, not opening the Bible, but with it still in his hand, and then turns back and says, oh, I wouldn't want to deprive you of this, the Bible. He says, salvation lies within. Not a hard, by the way, illustration for a pastor to make that jump, but yes, exactly. Salvation lies within. And there's this cute part at the end where he sends the Bible back to the warden, this time open with a note saying, salvation really did lie within. When he chipped away at that wall and finally got through, he had to tunnel through what was the sewer system. And I'm not going to have anyone get grossed out this morning to go through the details of what he had to swim through, but it's the sewer system. And there's this awesome scene where he finally gets out and it's pouring rain and he tears off his shirt and he lifts up his hands and he's free and he's just rejoicing. 19 years of chipping away the stone and he's finally free. As the waters wash over him, he has new life. And one of the themes that also are in the movie Shawshank Redemption is talks about not just the captivity of the body, but also of the mind. This is, by the way, a picture here of the book. And I love, by the way, the Bible not only has the pot for the axe, but look where it is. Exodus. The story of leaving slavery and God saving a people from slavery. Isn't that beautiful? That's well-made cinema right there. And that'll preach, right? Because that's what God wants in our lives. He wants that when we're captive to whatever circumstance, to whatever situation, we are chipping away still. See, there's a couple different ideas of what faith is, and one of them I think is really stupid. And I'm sorry if that's your perspective, but I just think it's stupid. I call it the Douglas Adams version of faith. Douglas Adams, not a Christian, by the way, he was a writer, and he wrote The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Anybody know The Hitchhiker's Guide? Very funny book. Okay, in The Hitchhiker's Galaxy, there's this thing called a babblefish. That is a fish that you put in your ear, and it translates from whatever language the person is speaking into your language. Okay, it just does that automatically. And it says in this, it says, "Now it is such a bizarrely improbable coincidence that anything so mind-bogglingly useful, the babblefish, could have evolved by chance that some thinkers have chosen to see it as the final and clinching proof of the non-existence of God. The argument goes something like this. I refuse to prove that I exist, says God, for proof denies faith, and without faith I am nothing. But, says man, the babblefish is a dead giveaway, isn't it? It could not have evolved by chance. It proves you exist, and so therefore, by your own argument, you don't exist. Oh dear, says God, I haven't thought of that, and promptly vanishes in proof of logic. This is the first idea of faith. This idea of faith is the idea that we think that faith is believing in something that has no evidence or rationality. That it's basically faith versus rationality. And I think that bunch of faith is baloney. That's not what faith is. God doesn't need it to be a mystery. And there is more than enough evidence to prove that God is real, to prove that He exists. In fact, I can't think of how He could make it more obvious in my mind. And if you're still in that point where you're saying, I don't see it, I'd be more than happy to meet with you. We can talk about all the evidence of God's existence, but everything echoes His existence before it. Now, what doesn't exist is man's image of what God should be. And the reason it doesn't exist is because it can't exist. Not if God is beyond man. See, I as a man can make something. I made this box, by the way. And you can see how well I did in my carpentry class by the construction of this. I did it all by myself, by the way. So my wife is not to blame for this hideous contraption here. But this box I made by myself. And this box is what I can make. I know it's not very impressive. Now, if God is something I can make, it's something simpler than me. If God is something that I can't make, if God is something beyond my expectations, beyond my imagination, then I can't even picture Him. I can't imagine Him because He's beyond who I am. That's my Vanna White, by the way. Thank you. All right, so scoot it over a little bit. All right, so here's my box. Anyway, this is what I can make. God, though, is beyond what I can make. One of my favorite moments in my life, and this shows you what a nerd I am, because it was in science class, but one of my favorite moments of my life was when the science teacher had this experiment for the class. She brought out a bunch of slips of paper that were different sizes. Most of them were like kind of triangular shape. And she gave us these pieces of paper, and she said, do whatever you want with them. She didn't give us any instruction. So everyone just took the pieces, and they fit it together, in this perfect box. This box that made sense. Everyone in the classroom did that, except for this guy. Always the troublemaker. My thing didn't make sense. It wasn't any real shape. It had a couple sides that worked, but then there was this one like weird jagged edge to it. And I thought when the teacher saw that I had come up with the right answer, She was going to be very impressed that I had put together the secret box, that, the jagged one, but she didn't get it. She thought I was wrong, that everyone else did a good job and that I'm just a troublemaker. But then she said, there's more. There's another piece. And she brought out all these new pieces, right? Gave each one to each student. Well, everyone could not fit the new piece in their box. It didn't make sense. So they tried to move a few pieces, but they couldn't get it to work. Except for this guy. This guy had a shape that perfectly outlined the new piece, and it fit in and made a big box that was perfect. How did I do it? Magic, right? No. I did it because I'm ridiculous and I look at patterns in everything. And so I looked at the pattern of the slip of paper, the cuts along the lines, and I put the pieces next to the pieces that made the most sense. I didn't look at the overall shape. I wasn't trying to just make it work and make it fit in my paradigm. Instead, I was just trying to take each piece and put it next to the piece that made the most sense for it to be next to, judging by the cuts of the line of paper. And I actually predicted the new piece coming and fitting in this bigger box. The illustration was meant to prove that in science what we do is we take all the pieces that we have and we make the best box that we can, but there's always new evidence, and when we have new evidence, we have to remake our box. But I proved something different, which is that if you're trying to fit together a box with the pieces of evidence that you already have, you are going to fail. But if you instead look at the pieces that make sense, looking for purpose and meaning, you can fit together a box that even predicts the evidence that you don't yet know. This is the worldview that accounts for God in life. And everything makes sense under the paradigm of seeing God, the foundation of it all, knowing that because we believe in God, we don't have all of the pieces. See, we in life, when we construct our life according to our own understanding, we create these boxes of reality. And when something doesn't fit in the box, it doesn't exist to us. And so we just deny it. And what I today am encouraging all of us to do is to get rid of the boxes of our own understanding and reform our lives according to God's understanding. Now, here's one of the things that was interesting about that experiment. The experiment nobody could do in the class without seeing my box or me helping them remake the box. And the reason is because not one student in that class thought about throwing out all the pieces and starting it again from scratch. Every single person tried to fit the new piece in the box they already made. We do that in life. When we have something new happen to us, a new experience, we just try to fit it into our paradigm instead of saying, hey, this evidence doesn't support my paradigm. Maybe I need to reform my box. Earlier I said there's two kinds of faith. One is this faith understanding that says, oh, it's not even about rationality. It's not even about the evidence. I just believe it in blind faith. Then there's another one. This is C.S. Lewis's. C.S. Lewis says, faith is the art of holding on to things in spite of your changing moods and circumstances. That is why faith is such a necessary virtue. Unless you teach your moods where they get off, which I love that C.S. Lewis, British guy, said where you get off. Like, I'll tell you where you get off. Right, I just picture C.S. Lewis doing that. You can never be either a sound Christian or even a sound atheist, but just a creature dithering to and fro, and its beliefs really dependent on the weather and the state of your digestion. Consequently, this is words, okay? Consequently, one must train the habit of faith. Train the habit of faith. I think that's such a beautiful image. What he's saying there is to say that our faith is not blind, it's not irrational, it's not even against our experiences, it's against our mood. It's against our emotion. It's against our despair. Thomas, who's known as the doubter, right, which I think is such a ridiculous, it wasn't even, he's known as the twin. That was the nickname it even said in the reading. So I think it's totally unfair we call him the doubter, because he didn't doubt any more than any of the other followers. They all got to see Jesus. Thomas needed to see Jesus too. And I think it's great when people can take things on faith. Good for you. I'm not one of them. I have to see evidence. I have to put out reasoning. I have to put out rationality. I have to put pieces together. I'm a huge skeptic in life. That's just the way that I was made. But here's my point. If you're that too, God wants you too. It's not like you don't fit in Christianity. Be honest about your doubt, but be honest about hope too. Don't give up just because it's a little confusing and there's a mystery and there's things that we don't know. Don't give up because you can't put a box together with all the pieces, or it looks like something like this when you try because the pieces didn't quite fit. Keep digging, keep moving forward. Faith is more about will. Or to quote Martin Luther, faith is starting to take the first step when you can't see the whole staircase. I've had this, by the way, experience actually even recently, where someone was supposed to do something and I was told they can't do it, but it needed to happen. So I just basically, my wife knows who this is, I just basically told everyone, I'm expecting that it's going to work out. I'm expecting that it was going to work out. And it was a lot like running to a cliff and expecting someone to build a bridge. That's what it felt like. I was running to this cliff, and I knew it was going to go really bad if there wasn't a bridge there, and I wasn't helping to build the bridge, so I'm just going, okay, let's see. And sure enough, right at the last minute, the bridge appeared. Right at the last minute, the person could make it, everything worked out, and it was just awesome. It was such an evidence that God was there, because here, I'm moving forward. I'm telling everyone, I'm trying not to be dishonest about it, but I'm expecting it's going to work out. Yep. When people say, now the person's going to be there, right? I've said, yes, I'm expecting so. The person's telling me, I'm not going to be there. I'm expecting they will be there, right? And I'm just moving forward because I have faith. And you know why? Because God has shown up for me in the past. It's not blind faith. It's not with a lack of experience. It's just that even though my mood says I'm going to fall and I'm going to die and this cliff is going to kill me, that was my feeling at the time, I still moved forward because I have faith. So faith is not, by the way, a lack of doubt or emotions or despair or discouragement. You can have all of those fears and still have perfect faith. Because if you keep moving forward, you're doing exactly what God wants you to do nonetheless. So here today, I've got something for your box. Now, I don't know what your box is. I don't know what you've pieced together of your understanding, even of who you are. Maybe some of them things are even things that seem good. Like maybe you're the person that's always got it together. And then at this emotional state, you don't feel together. But you know your box is, your paradigm is, I'm the guy that gets it together. I'm the guy that has, or girl that has it all together. I'm the people come to for answers. And you don't then want to share your doubt or your frustration or your brokenness. And so you're putting on this box. We in life put ourselves in so many different boxes. We in life put so many different things on our view of life. And it's time that we just get rid of it. Because God doesn't want us to live in a box. God's got more for us. God doesn't want us to live in that trash. God wants us to be free. God wants us to be free. One of my wife's favorite illustrations that I ever used in a sermon was 7 years ago. I was given a sermon 7 years ago. And I shared the story of this guy who got hurt from the front. And so he decided, I'm never going to get hurt from the front again. And he built this huge wall to protect him so he would never be hurt from the front again. But then he was attacked from the right. So he built a huge wall from the right, said, I'm never going to be attacked from the right again. And he built this huge wall so he was defended from the right. But then he was attacked from the left. So what did he do? Built a huge wall from the left. Finally, he was attacked from behind. So he built this huge wall from behind. And then he died. Because he had surrounded himself with walls. These walls that we make to try to make sense of our life, to try to make sense of our hurt, to protect us from being vulnerable to others, just enclose and just trap us. And we need to smash those walls down. We need to break them down to let God show us, you don't need any walls. I've got you. You don't need a box to put in. You don't need to be the person that gets it all together, the person that has all the answers. You don't need to be the broken and dysfunctional one. Maybe that's who you feel you are. Maybe you feel like you're the one who's always a mess, and there's nothing ever going to change that. 19 years of chipping away, and Andy didn't give up. How many years are you? Are you going to keep chipping away? Are you going to keep moving forward? Are you going to keep searching, keep digging for more in life? Because I am. I know what's worth it. It's freedom at the end of that tunnel. At the end of that tunnel of crap that we have to run through, that we have to swim through, there is freedom, and it comes in Jesus. And God wants us to be free. And I don't care how many years, I don't care how many years you've been chipping away and feel like that wall is never going to come down. Don't give up. Hope can never die. And God is always there. God is there for you, and He wants you to be free. Let's be free in Him.